As I mentioned before about the excitement of your first solo flight, there's also the excitement of your first combat mission. Now, on the first combat mission, I flew as a co-pilot with an experienced pilot who was also the operations officer for the squadron. And he was leading the squadron on the mission that day. It was a target in New Guinea. I don't recall where it was or what the target was. All I remember is that when they started shooting at us, I swear I felt like I was sticking out like a sore thumb, that the Japs down there were shooting specifically at me, that was all they could see was me sitting there and weren't shooting at anything else. I was excited. I was scared stiff. I wanted to duck, especially when I saw the yak-yak. But where do you duck? Besides, I had to toggle off the bombs. It was a co-pilot's duty. So, you probably heard me mention it before, that I'd volunteered for combat training all the way through my flight training. The primary reason for volunteering was to find out whether I was a coward or not. Well, I found out real quick on that first mission. I was scared stiff. I never did learn to appreciate getting shot at. I guess nobody actually ever learns to appreciate that. You just pretty soon learn it. That's part of the game. But after NADZAB, we flew a couple missions, staging out of Hollandia a couple times to hit advanced targets. That was after Hollandia was taken. Hollandia was one of the places that we bombed before, when I first got to NADZAB, rather. But when we left NADZAB, we went to WWII. It was off the coast of New Guinea, about central New Guinea there. And flew missions out of WWII. Hitting targets in western New Guinea and in the Halmahera group. Then we left WWII and went to the island of WWII. After it was taken, and all the Air Force had there was just a 3-mile perimeter with 2 airstrips. One for bombers and one for fighters. And there's a coral island. The airstrips were just coral airstrips that's shown up brightly, sparkled in the moonlight at night. We got to WWII. We were just a short distance from the Halmahera group of islands, and Japs based there in Halmahera. WWII was one of the Halmahera Islands, actually. And I can remember that, I don't think it was for 63 consecutive nights. I don't remember now exactly. The Japs would come over and bomb our little 3-mile perimeter. They were fairly accurate. I think all they had for a bomb site was a string and a rusty nail, but it was pretty darn good. And they didn't come as a group. They just came one right after the other all night long, from sunset to sunup. And then we had them cut off. Japs had to rush the island. The Army was holding the perimeter. The Japs weren't getting any supplies in. So those Japs on the island weren't being resupplied. They didn't have anything to formulate a counterattack against us. And eventually, with the rest of the Halmaharas being cut off from resupply also, the Japanese aircraft missions fell off to where we were no longer getting any bombing, except for the occasional scattered one. We'd go over and hit those targets on the Halmaharas on the airfields there. But then we also flew up, hit Zamboanga in the Philippines, and also went after shipping in the Philippine Sea there. The only time I encountered any Japanese, we encountered a Japanese fleet that was making its advance towards Leyte to try to recover that island that they'd lost. And as we were beginning to make our run, B-24 heavies way up above us started making a bomb run on the fleet. And we tried to call them and reach them and get them to hold off until we could make our run. But we were unable to contact them. Consequently, we couldn't fly through their bombs. So we were directed to go hit a secondary target. And actually, we didn't even hit a secondary. We hit a tertiary target because the weather or some other feature precluded our hitting the secondary target. So that was the only time I saw any of the Japanese fleet. We went from Morotai then, after the landing on Luzon. Landing was made at yeah, that's right. Landing was made at Lingayen Gulf, and 9 days after they made the landing there and the Army troops moved in, they secured an airstrip there and laid down an area for us to fly into, laid pierced steel planking, PSP. And we flew in there 9 days after they made the landing. And you've never heard such a racket until you've landed on pierced steel planking. And it sounds like that runway is rolling up behind you as you go rolling down that runway. Noisy, clankety clank, crash, bang. But that's what we flew out of there on Lingayen Gulf. The rest of my tour. From Lingayen Gulf, we hit targets on the China coast, hit Okinawa, and looked for shipping in between. The one and only time I had an engine shot out, I got it shot out over Formosa. And I forget what target we were hitting. That's, of course, that's immaterial also. Well, I figured it was just some Japanese clerk had forgotten to unload his rifle while cleaning it, and the damn thing went off and hit me dead center in the oil sump on my right engine. Well, I was the first one to have an engine shot out over Formosa. And we received instructions to head out for the coast. And such a distance, I don't remember which now, and ditch the aircraft, and they'd send the rescue aircraft after us. Now we had, prior to this time, we had Air Force Dumbos, rescue aircraft, that would go right in on the target with us. But when we started hitting targets out of Luzon and north, we had Navy Dumbos. They just go to a certain point in orbit and wait to be called for a rescue mission. Well, I wasn't about to put a perfectly good airplane that was flying nicely into the drink. Checked my fuel, checked with my engineer and navigator. We figured we could make it home, so I called, said negative, I was not going to ditch, I was heading home. We figured we could make it. So then they acknowledged and said, okay, head for home if you wish. When you get in the vicinity of the Dumbo, check your fuel, and if everything looks okay, if there's any doubt in your mind, ditch it there and let them pick you up. So I said, Roger. We went from there. We got in the vicinity of the Dumbo, checked our fuel, everything was looking great. Engine was just purring away. And so I called in, told him we were going to proceed on. Still thought we could make it home without any sweat. They said, Roger, there's an emergency airstrip on the northern tip of Luzon. You can go in there and crash land there if necessary, if you feel that you can't make it. However, that's in Japanese territory, so be sure to take immediate cover after landing, and we'll send rescue after you. There. By the time I got to that point, I says, I'm heading home. I'm going to sleep in my own little bed tonight. I'm not going to land in any Japanese-held territory. So we flew that airplane, got in home there at Luzon, Lingayen Gulf, with fuel to spare. Not a whole lot, but adequate. So that was my first and only experience with an engine shot out. I must have lived a charmed life. We go out on missions, come back, wouldn't be a scratch on my airplane. And both airplanes on either side of me would have all kinds of holes in them. This was one time I experienced a mid-air collision. I'd always heard that a mid-air collision can ruin your whole day. And I found out real quick they were right. I was leading the squadron on a target on Formosa. I had a new pilot flying my number 2 wing position, which is the easiest position to fly. It was his first combat mission as first pilot. But I wasn't too concerned about him because he had more flying time. He had about twice as much flying time as I had, but it had been all back in the States as an instructor pilot and hadn't had any combat experience. But still, I figured he was a well-qualified pilot. I didn't have to be too concerned about him. So we get to the target area and make a diving turn onto our target run for strafing and skip bombing. As I started my turn, I test fired my guns to clear them. And of course, all others did the same. And I checked my wingmen, just see how they're doing. Number 3 was doing all right. Check number 2, tilt. We were colliding. I hauled back on the controls, fortunately in time to keep from going in as a tangled mass of aircraft. Broke my climb at about 900 feet above the ground, and checked with the top turret gunner. Says, "What's the damage?" He said, "Well, we've lost our wingtip and about half our aileron on the right side, but otherwise everything seems all right." Everything was flying good. I had no control problems. I checked to my left. There was my number 2 man, sitting way up high at about 1,500 feet. And he appeared to have some rudder problems. Apparently, he hit my wing with his rudders and damaged them to some extent. But he was still flying. So I sitting there at 900 feet over the target area, you're a clay pigeon. He can hit you with everything, including the kitchen sink. I'm not going to sit here and get shot down. So I told the crew, I said, "We're going on in." So I stuck my nose down. And we went on in, completed our bomb run, strafing, skip bombing, and then headed out to the coast. And as soon as we got a safe distance off coast, about 3 miles or so, I asked top third gunner if he knew where our number 2 man was, because I still didn't see him. My number 3 man was still with me. And he says, "Well, when you started your run on target," said he turned right and headed for the coast. So I decided to pull a search for him. I turned the squadron over to flight leader of the second flight, kept my number 3 man with me, and we pulled a search as long as we could, calling and calling, trying to locate that number 2 man, but we were unable to do so. Finally, the engineer and navigator said, "Well, we better head for home or we're going to run out of fuel." So we gave up the search then and headed for home. We got home. Nobody knew what had happened to them, to the number 2 man. They were listed as missing in action. And about 30 days later, we get a message from the 14th Air Force that they had gone across the China Sea and crash landed in China. And they were rescued there and brought to the 14th Air Force, the nearest 14th Air Force facility, I guess. And they were eventually flown back to our outfit. The co-pilot on that flight was an old, experienced head. When I go back, I asked him, I said, "Turkey, what in the world happened up there?" He said, "Well, when you test fired your guns, he test fired and then started looking around in the cockpit. And I was wondering what he was looking for, so I looked around too to see what he was looking at. He said, when we looked up, we were colliding. And said he didn't realize that he had the electrical firing and recharging button, and he did not have the hand rechargers like we'd had on the earlier airplanes, and he was looking for those hand rechargers to recharge the guns after test firing them. And that's how we got our heads in the cockpit. So that's what happens when you're flying tight formation. You take your eyes off the lead aircraft, you're in trouble. We were both extremely fortunate to have survived that collision. There was another collision a few weeks later where the one aircraft did not survive. Tragic. Seems like, as I reflect back, that most of our casualties were due to accidents rather than combat action. But I completed my tour of duty there, Lingay and Gulf, and first, I'd finished my tour of duty initially around February, and was eligible to go home. I'd put in the necessary number of missions and acquired the necessary number of points. But they were in need of experienced combat pilots and asked me if I would stay over and extend my tour. Said they would put me in from a captaincy after 3 months if I would. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I said, I never have learned to appreciate getting shot at. However, I don't actually have an urgent need to go home either. I'm not married. And that if you'll put me in from a captaincy now, I said, I'll stay over, because even after you get your promotion, you had to stay over an additional 3 months. So with their method, I'd have been there and probably taken a month to get the promotion. After they put me in and being, say, 3 months, they wanted me to after 3 months they would put me in, so that'd be 3 months plus 1 month together, it'd be 4 months, and then stay the extra 3 months. I'd have been in 7 months extra staying over there. As it turned out, they put me in for my promotion. I got it, came April 1st. I made captain, and I had to serve 3 more months, April, May, and June, before I was eligible to go home. By that time, when I was eligible to go home again, the outfit was moving up to Aishima, an island off the coast of Formosa, and the Aishima, as you may or may not have heard, was where Ernie Pyle, a famed combat reporter, lost his life from combat action. But when they moved north, then I was left behind, awaiting orders. And I finally got orders to report to Manila, to head for home. And that was one of the most miserable trips I ever made in my life. I got to Manila, to the port of embarkation there, or debarkation, what have you. And then reported aboard ship at the proper time, come home. Now, the fresh water supply on the ships is rather limited, so you were restricted to one shower per day. However, I'd gotten some affliction, didn't know what it was. The ship's medic said it was probably some jungle rot of some sort that would disappear once I got back to a temperate zone. But I was itching in in the groin, in the armpits, in the waist, behind the knees. Oh, it was terrible, especially in the groin area. And I'd get up at night, I just couldn't sleep. I was itching so bad. I'd go take and be itching like mad again. I bet I was taking 3. Fortunately, nobody ever counted or noticed it. I was going way in excess of what we were supposed to. And I put up with that all the way back across the Pacific on that darn ship. Landed at, we were supposed to land at San Francisco, but the war ended while we were still 3 days out at sea. So traffic backed up there in the harbor at San Francisco, so they rerouted us into Seattle, Washington. So we ended at Seattle, then proceeded train heading east. I went to the medics there in Seattle. And they were saying the same